this computer. Welcome, everybody. I'm Molly Gordon. Most of you I know, some of you I know a little bit from Facebook or other communities, and some of you are new to me as far as I know. Could be just my memory failing. And I'm thrilled to have you join us today for one of my favorite and most inspiring people, Mare Gleason of One Solution. Mare recently published a book, One Thought Changes Everything. I have a heap of them on my bookshelf back here because it's become my new favorite book to use to introduce people to the three principles and to the potential for new thought, to the freedom of mind, and to the many, many possibilities that open up there. So, Mare, rather than me reading your bio, would you like to introduce yourself in whatever way you see fit?
Okay, sure. That's fun. Well, I was born in California, grew up mostly in Atlanta, and have spent time living all over the world thanks to this work. And I'm currently based in Chicago now for a project that One Solution is doing here. And I really feel like one of those ridiculously fortunate people, and that I stumbled across this understanding of the mind very early in life, and I knew very deeply that this is what I wanted to do with my life. So I feel unbelievably lucky that I came across this understanding. It resonated so deeply with me, and I knew I wanted to do this work professionally. So that's what I've been doing for the last 12 years, is sharing what I think of really simply as just an accurate understanding of how the mind creates our experience of life. And I've done that in so many different capacities, from working with individuals, couples, families, organizations. And for many of you who've been around this understanding for a little while, you begin to get the distinct feeling that this is kind of the one thing that would solve everything. So I've seen it fix marriages. I've seen it turn around company cultures. I've seen it now here in Chicago help kids who've been involved in violence their whole lives have a new idea about how to break that cycle of violence. And now talking with the Chicago PD about how to do that on a larger community scale. So to me, it just looks like this understanding of the mind solves everything. And that's what I've been spending the last 12 years of my life yammering on about. And I don't intend to stop anytime soon.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you're slowing down at all. Wow.
I just have to say, I love that someone is cleaning their bathtub.
Oh, is someone cleaning their bathtub? That's fabulous.
That is so impressive. I think that's like multitasking at its best right there.
And I would love someone to clean my bathtub.
She's so cute, Dobra. I think it's awesome. I think having this on as like a podcast in the background is a brilliant idea. So don't feel bad. I think it's amazing. I just wanted to say I see your work over there. You're doing great work.
It's another example of the infinite potential for inspiration in any moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's lovely. Wow, there's several places that are kind of competing for front position in my mind that I find particularly exciting about your story and the work you're doing. And I'm wondering if there's anything that's leaping to the front of your mind that you want to make sure you say, and there doesn't need to be. But before I start choosing, I thought I'd give you the chance.
You threw a curveball. I was not expecting that.
Well, and you don't have to catch it.
Well, I never know, because I live in my own world, and I'm so curious actually what the people on this call would like to hear about. So rather than you or I picking it, I mean, I figure these these lovely faces showed up for a reason. I
Mm-hmm.
can talk about anything. Like I just said, I have seen how this helps me get through a normal workday. I've seen how it helps parents not freak out about things happening with their kids. I've seen it with couples, I've seen it with organizations, and I've seen it on a global scale. So I'm kind of happy to talk in any direction
Perfect.
that people feel like this is what I showed up to hear about.
Perfect. So I'm going to add one or two things as preface and then open it up to folks who can already start using the chat box, or in a moment you can unmute yourself and just speak up. The premise of this and the claim of this conversation is that there is literally, and I don't mean that in the new way, I mean that in the old way, there is literally actually one key that unlocks solutions to individual problems, global problems, community problems, the whole freaking thing. Mm-hmm. And on the face of it, that might seem just crazy and unlikely, but the more deeply I've looked into this over the last 7 years, the more I go, holy crap, it's actually true. And so what you hear here, if you want more information about background, or if there are questions or pieces that we don't cover today, feel free to reach out to me. Look at the bottom of the page on my website. You'll find a couple dozen books. There are numerous resources to help illuminate you on the many, many aspects of this understanding that we call the three principles. And with that, let's dive in with what the people who are showing up here are curious about. So you can either put in the chat or you can just speak up, and if there's a traffic jam, I'll do my best to manage traffic. What drew you here today? What are you curious about, or what do you want to learn today?
Okay, so I can see someone wrote in the chat box.
Yes.
Antra, if that's how you say your name. Hi, there you are.
Hi, Antra.
So being new to the understanding and feeling like you know this is right but not getting it. Would you mind, are you comfortable unmuting yourself and telling me a little bit more about what you mean by not getting it?
Not getting it. So like when I feel like I get it, then it suddenly seems to disappear again. And then I get stuck in my thinking and stuck in the outside in versus the inside out.
Are you playing peekaboo? Mm-hmm.
Right,
Oops.
the peekaboo. Oops. And when I feel like I lose it, I think, well, that's just a thought, and it'll pass, and then maybe it doesn't for a little while. So then I start to feel frustrated. I just know deep down inside that it's right. Like I get that piece of it. It feels very intense. So I just know it's right. But I've been from such a place of outside in and reactive and all of these things, and impulsive and compulsive in the moment of a thought. So it's hard. It's like a muscle that's not been trained, I guess, sort of feels like.
And when you feel like what you've gotten, can you say a little bit about what you feel you have gotten that's helped you?
Yes. So this idea that the space in between, this idea of something bigger, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, like that feels very real to me. And also the relief that I'm not my thoughts, and the relief that they go away, because they do. And then the idea that, we create all these, it's all illusion, and I know that's true. So I guess that.
Well, I have good news and I have bad news, Antra. The good news is everything you just shared is all any human being needs to understand. And the bad news is I understand that just like you do, and I still have times where I totally lose it and I'm really reactive. And I think the only thing that's shifted for me that might be helpful to share with you is a lot of people, myself included, innocently, I call it thingify the principles. They turn it into a thing. It's like, and I don't even, to be completely transparent, I was hesitant about putting my book out there because I've even evolved from talking about it as 3 principles. I think gets people in trouble sometimes because it turns it into a thing.
Hmm.
And so it's like, oh, I had it and then I lost it. And where did it go? And it's like, it's this entity, it's this object. And as I've evolved in my understanding, I've really relaxed about, humans innocently turn everything into a stupid freaking thing. And then they use that thing in ways that are helpful sometimes, and then they bang themselves against the head with that thing sometimes. And we can do that about anything in life. It's like people can do that about nutrition and diet. I mean, it's a very quiet, easy to understand thing, but you can make it a very loud, big deal thing and beat yourself to death with it,
Mm-hmm.
So what's happened is I've evolved and realized, look, I just have understanding about what's going on in life. It's not a thing. I can't have it, lose it. It doesn't work that way. It's just, I see clearly sometimes with perspective, all those beautiful things you just described that like, oh my gosh, I am not my thinking. Oh my gosh, this will pass. And sometimes I have this amazing experience of having really unhelpful, loud, reactive thinking. And I have all of that perspective in that moment where I'm like, this is just reactive thinking and it's going to pass. And so I'm very graceful with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then other times I'm really not, like really, really not. And I just have evolved in being not having a story around that and not turning that into a thing that means I'm good or bad. I've got it. I don't have it. It's more just like really trying to not have a story. And frankly, this is just the way Mare Gleason thinks of it, but not giving so much of a shit. Like I don't want to be measuring how I'm doing and where I'm at all the time. And what I found is I have days sometimes, and sometimes it spreads into like a week where I'm just in a funk or I'm really reactive or I'm really edgy or I'm really impatient. And it's like, that's what it feels like to me now. It's like, and it's like, so it'll come and it'll go and it is what it is. And it's not so, chunky or choppy. Like it used to be more thingy. Like I was looking at it. Oh, these 2 days have been bad. What's going on? Where's my understanding? And it was like like getting out the measuring tape. How big is it? How fat has it gotten? When's it going to go? Looking at the clock, like all the thinginess that we put around life of how long has it been here? How big has it gotten? How bad does it make me? How far am I away from what I use? Like all of that measuring, it's way more fluid. It's like, and it's the same like Adic and I just as a couple, like I'll notice like, oh, we had like 3 weeks where it was just like so lovely and so easy and we were so loving with each other. And I don't want to thingify that either. Like, okay, so how do I make sure I do that more? Or it's like, no, it just happens. And then it goes. And then we'll have like a week period where we're just like not very nice people to each other and like feeling really down and blamey and reactive and so like,
Yes.
that's what helps me with that.
That's super helpful. Thank you. That's very helpful. I think it reminds me kind of the ability to surrender with the and I mean, there's just nothing to do, right?
Yeah.
That's how it feels when you said that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
You're welcome. I'll share with you, it's just so funny, it's made me think of this. I got a text message from my sister-in-law this morning because my wedding is 2 weeks away, and she just sent this message saying, OMFG, I can't believe you're getting married so soon. It just hit me. And I wrote back, I know. I can't believe it's almost here. I feel so lucky sometimes to have this person in my life. I can't believe it's real. And I press send. And then 2 seconds later, I wrote back. And then other times I'm just a normal asshole in a bad mood who's not grateful for anything. But you know how it goes. I really do sometimes feel like I'm the luckiest girl in the world and I'm so happy. And then there's other times where I would not say that. I'm like too busy complaining about all the things I don't like, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Mara, how does not thingifying a low mood, how does that help? Because I'm imagining some people, whether here or listening to this later, might go, okay, so I've got this crappy situation, crappy attitude, limited mind. So how has this helped me if I'm just stuck with what I've got?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just think it's more accurate. And anytime there's something that's a little bit more true, it's helpful. Like turning it into a thing is making it matter more. And the truth is experiences in and of themselves don't have matter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So like we thingify good experiences, we thingify bad experiences, and it just, I feel like it creates an illusion that somehow it's something more than it is, which is just a, you know, passing experience of energy that flows through all of us. So it's more, like I said, more accurate, more truthful, which saves us from getting lost in a snarl of untruth, you know,
Gotcha.
like there's something wrong with me. No, actually
Yeah.
not, you know? So it's more accurate, but I also find that just to me, just my feeling about it is I feel like it leaves the doors open in the room as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to closing them. So if it's not a thing, it's just a passing experience. So it feels to me, I don't know if I'm making this up, but that like it just changes easier because the doors are open, you know? It's not a solid thing with lines around it. So it moves seemingly quicker or with less fanfare.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just seems like it's quieter, it's more transient in that way. But also the third thing that comes to mind is just, you know, what Antra said about the space in between and the belief that there's, not even a belief, that's the wrong word, but like a real human experience of realizing we're not doing this. Like, I'm not doing my mood to myself. I'm not the intelligence behind life. I'm not doing my heartbeat every day. Like, do I want to start thingifying my heartbeat and getting critical about it? No, because I'm not really doing it. And so not thingifying it makes me not personalize something that isn't personal. And therefore it feels more like people often use the metaphor of kind of just being in a flow of life or just kind of riding whatever waves come.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not the creator of the waves.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. I see Jeanette asked for a refresher on the principles. Everyone's favorite question.
Well, which one's Jeanette? Wave, if I can see. Oh, there you are. I like to look at whoever I'm talking to. There's so many faces otherwise. Well, yeah, so like I said, I don't even think of like the term principles as necessarily always helpful. Sometimes I do. It kind of depends on the day or the mood I'm in. But like what I would say is it's just it's words that help explain the human experience for us in a way that's incredibly simplifying and comforting. I think it's comforting. Anything for me, Mara, that gets made more simple, I'm way more comfortable with. So like, I remember the first math teacher I had that just simplified math for me. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, I'm way more comfortable with this now. It had scared me before. Math had scared me because it looked too complicated. And so these are just words that point to truths that simplify the human experience. And the way I would describe that is, it is universally true that humans are experiencing their own mind, not an external world. And the fact of that releases people from the very complicated, very confusing, very frustrating temptation to think we are at the effect of external forces. So prior to learning that it is a universal principle that people experience thought, that that's what's running through their sensory system, giving them feelings and giving them a perception of the world, prior to learning that, I thought I was at the effect of people around me and my environment and my circumstances. So you can imagine how things had to be just so for me to feel okay. And the second any one of those things was out of my preferred ideal balance, I was suffering and I had no way out. So, you know, I'm bored of hearing myself say it because I've said it so many times, but it was the original insight I had that I saw so clearly. But I grew up with the belief that my father's behavior and moods controlled my feelings. And it was so invisible to me that that had permeated everything from how I thought about myself, what I thought I could and couldn't do in life, my self-esteem. I mean, it was just that one misunderstanding created a lot of difficulty and misunderstanding in my life that really complicated things. I mean, I had to do a lot of working around him and spaces and people and things and everything. I mean, it goes to like when you'll pick up a phone or not. I mean, it was crazy, the things that I had to work around because of that misunderstanding. So that's one example that I've seen in so many millions of different ways since then, that I realized, oh, I'm experiencing my own thinking, and that creates my perception of the world. And then the next piece of that that's so helpful is realizing that your mind's going to change. Like exactly like Antra said, is that it will pass, it will change. I mean, it's funny because I had a conversation with two women that I've met recently here in Chicago who've also been learning about the principles, and said, you know, we were all just kind of joking about how before we learned simply how the mind actually creates the experience, that we had all these ideas that made us feel frightened and afraid and alone. So I used to think when I was in a bad mood or a bad experience that either it was caused by something outside of me, which made it very scary because I had no control over it, or I was just sort of helplessly at the effect of it. But then the other thing is, I thought there was something wrong with me. When I felt bad, I really truly thought there was something wrong with me. And then on my eyeballs, I saw a life that was full of things wrong with it. And so I would get uncomfortable and scared that that was true and that that was permanent. And now I know it's neither. It's temporary thought creation that's going to change. That's the nature of thought, is that you move. And when you move into a different headspace, you see a completely different self, you see a completely different environment, you see a completely different job, spouse, anything, you name it. It changes when your thinking changes, and your thinking's going to change automatically. Like, oh my God, if I had known that as a teenager, the hours I'd spent in my room crying, assuming something was fundamentally wrong and broken about me and that my life was crap and it was never going to be okay. Like, yeah, no, would have saved myself from all of that. Because now I still have moments where I'm down, but I know, yeah, life is not going to look like this when you're in a different state of mind. It is just not. You're going to have different thinking that's going to make the world totally different. And it's so helpful to know that, because your mind otherwise would be playing constant tricks on you. So that's what I feel like the principles, in terms of just giving you a simple, more accurate understanding. It's like, I often compare it to that moment in my childhood where I suddenly knew a haunted house was a haunted house, so I could go in them and have fun. Like, prior to that, I was like, I wasn't even comfortable going to the parking lot to drop off my older brother. It was like, oh no, don't get me near that thing. Scary shit happens in there. And then when I realized, oh, it's all fake and they're, people in costumes and it's an experience and it's going to feel scary while you're in it, but you're going to come out the other side and you're still going to be alive. Like, once I knew that, I could go to the parking lot and then eventually I could go in them and actually have fun. So that's kind of my refresher, is that if people understood that they're experiencing their mind and that their mind changes, that alone would save people from so much suffering, and it would save people from causing suffering against each other. Mm-hmm. And the only other piece I'll say about it that is so hopeful for humanity is it shows us how we are all the same. The only thing that separates us is we're going up and down and having different thinking at different times. And so sometimes it feels like I'm like this with other humans, but that's just an illusion created in my mind. And if I know that, then I don't see the fact that I have different thinking from someone else as a problem. It's just normal. And I don't have to judge it, freak out about it, react to it. I can just understand it. And that allows people to exist in the natural separateness of our individuality without creating an illusion that somehow it's a separateness outside of just made up thoughts.
Thank you.
Was that helpful? Is there anything that I missed?
No, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, yes. No, I think that was really helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mara. Yeah. Lori Ann, would you like to unmute yourself and share your question? Or I'm also willing to read it, but.
Yeah, so let me just find my question. Hang on. Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I guess my question is more a business perspective. So I'm talking to coworkers. We're trying to address some issues that we're having, and I'm trying to get conversations going when I'm getting some resistance or and I'm struggling a little bit to get people open to new thinking and new thoughts, and they don't know the 3 Ps. So I'd just be curious about your thoughts on ways to facilitate that discussion.
Mm-hmm. And so this is with coworkers, people who work alongside you that you see as struggling with certain issues and you'd like to help, or what is the motivation for you?
Yeah, so, well, technically I'm one of the co-owners, so I guess they would see me as the boss.
Okay.
So we own an electronics company, so we have manufacturing here in Minnesota. And so, yeah, what I'm, they're just like any other business, there's always issues that come up. And we're looking to improve efficiency. And we've been around for 19 years this year, and some of our people have been with us for 10, 12 plus years. So you run into a little bit of, we tried that before, it doesn't work and stuff like that. And so, just trying to start those conversations a little bit of, regardless of what we did last year or the year before, that we still have room for improvement. And we're a small company, we're 10 people or less, so it's not like there's this huge company or huge amount of resources. And yeah, so that's kind of where we are. Does that help?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just going to share what occurs to me, and I'm prefacing it because I'm not saying it's right. It's just Mara Gleason's opinion as of 1:30 p.m. Central Time, whatever today's date is, July 25th. Like, I don't, because what occurs to me is you can't change people's thinking. Only a shift in consciousness does that. It's like literally new thinking happens to people in a different state of consciousness. So I think sometimes business managers, leaders, or even spouses and parents are trying to change thinking. And it doesn't work that way because people can only see what they can see consistent with whatever level of consciousness they're in. So then the question is, okay, well, how do I help shift levels of consciousness? Which
That's right.
Which is why I say this is just my best guess right now, because I don't really know the answer to that question. It's mysterious to me. But that being said, and I talked about this in the book, because I mentioned that it's like the black box on a plane.
On an airplane.
Is everyone wants to know, like, well, how did it happen? You know, it's like, oh, this crazy thing happened. How did it happen? And sometimes they find the black box and sometimes they don't. And I feel that way with clients. It's like sometimes I can really see what led to, or what I think led to a shift in consciousness. And other times I'm like, beats me. And like the number of people that I have thought didn't experience anything new or insightful during a program that we did, I find out a year later, you know, someone calls me and says, oh, so-and-so referred to me. They said they worked with you back in 2015 and it really changed their life. I'm like, that person? Really? I didn't see anything happen there. Like, what? So it's mysterious to me, but I described in the book, there's a few things that I would say seem like your best shot, if you will, and then the rest is a mystery. But is people have to get into a reflective state, and that is more of a getting curious and listening to people and asking a lot of questions, and then really listening, not because you want to listen just long enough till you can see where you can help change their thinking, which is what we all tend to do, but really listening with no end goal, no agenda, and really drawing people out. And also I find, and I just see this is true of me, Mara, this isn't even me talking to another human, but it's like, I can get into a mode where I'm, you know, running on whatever speed in my mind, and I'm go, 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 think, do. And I find that just putting the brakes on that and giving people the space to drop out of their normal, stop thinking in the typical habits, and just take a break. The number of times I have taken a break, whether it's an hour or 2 days or a week, and literally just thought of it as, I don't want to keep thinking in this way, I come back with a slight shift in consciousness and a different perspective. So oftentimes people are trying to, like, your point about like trying to fit these conversations into the normal. And Aaron and I, my former business partner, we used to call it the fan blade. It's like, if you're trying to draw out new ideas, how's it going to get through a fan blade, you know? Or if you're trying to input something new, how is it going to get through a fan blade? So giving people an opportunity to step out of their normal, take a break, get into a more reflective space. And there's 1,000,001 different ways you can do that. You know, so we used to have a rule that we would only work with companies off-site because they were too tempted and seduced by their normal distractions. But like I said, I don't want to say that as if that's the right way. It's just things I've noticed, and it's mostly mysterious. But I think that differentiator between looking to change people's thinking, between seeing that a shift in consciousness changes people's thinking for them automatically, it you're looking for something different then.
So I have a corollary question then,
Okay.
because I have a bunch of copies of a new book coming my way. And I'd like to put them into the hands of my employees.
Mhm.
And I'm not quite sure how to do that.
Mhm.
So what might be anybody's best recommendation? I was thinking it might be more appropriate to wait for the right moment individually to hand each one out over time. But this is a book that I would like to see my people read. How do I help make that happen?
Yeah. Well, I think we overcomplicate things because we think there are these rules that somebody made up that, like, well, I can't say this, or I don't want to seem like that, and my favorite personal example of this recently was when I spoke at the Peace Summit here in Chicago. And I'll show you just because it showed me how much unhelpful rules I had in my mind. But it's like, oh, this is awesome. I basically was told I had 20 minutes to speak to a group of teenagers, all from the south side of Chicago. And the whole point of the Peace Summit is these kids wanted to have this event because their classmates, friends, siblings are dropping like flies, literally getting shot every day. The violence in the south side of Chicago is so high that it's become expected that they're going to either get killed themselves or someone they love is going to get killed. That's become the norm here. And go figure, they hate it and they want to change it. So they're having this peace summit. And I was invited to be a speaker. And I thought to myself, okay, I only have 20 minutes with a group of teenagers that are dealing with something really horrible that I can't imagine dealing with. What could I share with them that would help? And I got so excited because my mind ran free. And I thought, I knew exactly what I want to share with them. And I was so passionate about what I wanted to share with them. And it was like, I only have 20 minutes and they're teenagers. So I'm just going to like let it all out. And I realized in that moment, why don't I feel that way about every conversation I have or talk I give? Like, it was somehow because it was a short amount of time and it was teenagers and they were dealing with something really tough that I suddenly gave myself permission to just say what I really wanted to say. And what I really wanted to say to them was, you have a superpower. And that's the realization that your mind is your own. No one can crawl inside your mind and make you think something. So the way in which the cycle of violence seems to be imposed upon them has to be broken by them realizing that they don't have to think in the ways that propel the violence. And then we got into a whole conversation about that. And then I got to do a breakout session with them. But what surprised me was my feeling of freedom around giving that talk and how unbelievably made up that was. Like, that I didn't have it in other talks. Because in my mind, it was like, well, you know, if you're speaking to a conference where you're addressing 500 entrepreneurs, you know, so I gave a talk at EO London where with a room full of 800 something entrepreneurs, and it was a way less inspired talk. I wasn't as excited about it. They didn't react to it as strongly because, you know, they're entrepreneurs and you have to like blah, 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 all that crap that we make up. So it's like, I don't know, say whatever you want to say about the book, frankly, like, but just say what you really mean. If it's getting them all into a room and saying, this book changed my life, just read it, like, then do that. Or if it's, you know, I know you guys are going to think I sound crazy, but it would mean so much to me if everyone took the time to read the book because A, B, C, like, but just you sharing honestly. We don't do that enough in life, and we don't do it enough because we make up thoughts that make certain things seem like they have to be more, you know, contained or more contextualized, or you don't want to look weird. Like, to Molly's point at the beginning of this call, when I first when Adic and I first had the idea of one solution, there's one solution to all the world's problems, my first thought was, we are going to sound so crazy. Like, everyone's going to think we're naive or we don't get it, and then it was like, yeah, but the truth is I believe it. So sorry, world, here I come, sounding naive and crazy. Get ready.
Great. Thank
But
you
the
very
thing,
much.
people will feel your authenticity.
Yeah, that's true.
So no matter what you say, I don't care what you say. Just be honest and they'll feel it.
Right. Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mara. Who else has a question or a comment for Mara?
Or a direction that you'd like to hear us speak about.
You know, I have one thing that just knocked my freaking socks off when I first heard you tell the story, and that's your story about someday
Mm-hmm.
and how that shifted for you. Would you mind sharing that story again?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because that's what I love about when you begin to get curious about the fact that everything we see in life is made up of thought, and that the truth is that's illusion. I watched a really interesting TED Talk over the weekend, and it's a much more neuroscience take on this, but it's a guy explaining that essentially we're all hallucinating our reality. But, you know, and like I FaceTimed with my 8-week-old niece earlier today, and her mother, of course. You know, she didn't exactly FaceTime me herself, and I'm sitting there looking at this little 8-week-old face, you know, laying there, and she's smiling. She's gotten to the point she's smiling now, and she's smiling at me, and like you can really see how she's at that stage of creating reality, like formulating thoughts. And if she was in a different part of the world with different parents, like she might be formulating different thoughts. Like it's just so interesting when you look at babies and you see how we just start to build a structure that we call life. But that structure is made of thoughts. It's not actually made of bricks or blocks or steel or wood. I mean, it's amazing for me to think about that. So the only reason I say that is because since I've been looking in this direction, learning about the mind and seeing that it's the mind creating everything, I trip over big wooden beams that have been holding something up in my reality that suddenly get exposed for the illusion that they are, the mere thought that they are. And it's amazing because when they fall, it's like there's this space that comes. There's this whole new, it's almost like if someone knocks out a wall in their house in order to bring more light in, it's like, oh, I like this new window we put in. And someday was one of those that happened to me recently, which was when Adic and I first got the idea, not even to have one solution, a nonprofit organization, which is what we are now, but just to have a conference where we knew, because we kept seeing it more and more, and this is exactly what it was, is as I began to see that there was one misunderstanding going on in the world, and it was that people were misunderstanding where their experience of life was coming from. And the more I saw that, I couldn't watch the news or read the newspaper and not have this overwhelming sense that if we cleared up that one misunderstanding, that wouldn't be happening, that wouldn't be happening, that wouldn't be happening. And I could see it. It was like every time I read an article, in that article, it was almost like it would come out of the page like, and here's how the principles would solve that. And here's how this would solve that. And so I kept seeing that and feeling it. And then without even realizing it, because so much of the activity going on in our minds is just kind of in the background. We don't even take notice. So when Adic and I were sitting on his couch in Norway talking about wanting to have a conference that really took this understanding and put it on the world stage in a way that said, hey, world, I think there might be a solution to a lot of these problems, but it's not in the direction we look, it's in the other direction. It's in realizing how the mind truly works. It's in realizing how every single one of us, 8 billion, whatever we are, people on the planet are creating our reality from the inside out. And if people understood that, these messes and problems wouldn't be created. And as we were talking about this, I was getting really excited. Adik was like, I don't want to do another. He wanted to do it in Norway, and he wanted to invite me and Aaron and George and Linda to speak. He's like, but I don't want anyone to talk about, you know, how mental health, how to feel better for yourself, individual. I don't want people talking about couples. I really want us to take a stab at looking at major global issues. And I got all excited and I was like, yes, I want to do that. I want to do that. I don't know how to do it, but I want to do it because I'm so sick of, and that's when I had this memory of over the last 10 years, I can't even watch the news anymore or read a newspaper and not see how this is the misunderstanding that's driving all these different things you hear about. And so I said, I want to do this because I can't watch the news anymore because it just irritates me. It's like someday the world is going to see how the mind really works. And when they see that, these problems won't exist. And Adik said, well, someday is just a thought too. So it never actually gets any closer to you because it's not a real thing. It's not like, so someday is on this side of the screen and Mare is on this side of the screen. So I just need to figure out how to get myself to this side of the screen. It's like, no, someday is not a real thing. It's not an object. It's an idea. It's a thought. We made it up. And as long as you think someday is real, it's always going to be further away from you because that's the very notion of someday. It's this thing out here that is in the I don't know when future. And it was just one of those moments, like I said, where you kind of trip over something. And I don't know why, or because, like I said, shifts in consciousness are random. They just seem to happen when they happen. But that moment, it was like everything stopped. And I could totally see that someday was made up. And I talk about it in the book because it was like so many dominoes fell in that moment where I realized he was right. If we saw that, we just needed to do it. It wasn't like someday some other person was going to come along or some entity or that like the moment on the day that the world was going to change was going to arrive on the calendar. Like I just realized how much made upness there was that kept that away, that, oh yeah, world problems will someday get solved by this understanding of the mind. It was like, no, if you see that, you have to do it. Someday isn't something that someone else comes along and does for you. And I realized, oh my God, I have that about so many things in my life. Like someday this or that, someday this or that. And I could see in that moment how profoundly made up that was. And then I also looked back in that moment at my career and I realized I had been working on a someday model that like, well, if you do this for long enough, then someday you'll get to there. And then you have to do this in order to someday do that. And once you get enough of this from people, then you can someday do that. And it was like, I don't know how to describe it other than that I had put my real dreams outside of myself because of this idea of someday. And I thought innocently that I was getting closer to it. But once he pointed out that someday was a made up idea that never gets closer, I was like, oh, damn it. You're totally right. I'm not getting closer to it. The whole idea of it is that it's always over there. So it just like it came down and all of a sudden what I wanted to do was like right in front of my face. It was suddenly in the now, like someday fell away and now came in and it was like, oh yeah, I want to do this now. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know how we were going to do it. And frankly, the last year has been experimenting and trying things. But the important part to me is that I know without a shadow of a doubt that what I'm doing is exactly what I want to be doing right now.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yay. We have about 10 more minutes, folks. Who else? Will there be another conference in 2018?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We don't necessarily want to do conferences all the time because conferences are one form. They get stale quickly, in my opinion, and they require a tremendous amount of energy to pull off. So we're having ideas about other things we can do, and it might be a different kind of conference. It might be a completely different thing, but we're definitely, because of some of the work we're starting to do in Chicago, we're thinking about a variety of different things we might do here. So something will be happening that people can be involved in. What form that takes is still up for grabs.
Right. And I believe that the recordings for the previous conference or conferences are still available if people want to purchase those.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'll add that to the web page for this event, as I've purchased those and I found them really not just inspiring but illuminating. And
well, the thing that I love about showing this simplicity of there being one solution to global problems is it empowers people, because it makes us realize, like, all of us can do something about that if we see it. There's nothing extra required. You don't have to wait for some politician or power that be or something like grant you the permission or whatever, crap we made up in our heads like I did. But so when one of the outcomes of the One Solution conferences has been that people have gotten inspired because they see, oh, it is simple. This does solve problems, and I want to get involved in that. And I just want to share, because it was so surprising to me and really really cool. I got a Facebook message this weekend from a teacher at a school in the UK who said, I just want to let you know, I watched the videos of One Solution Oslo, and I got inspired to host a One Solution conference at my school, put on entirely by grade 7 students.
wow.
And he showed me the video. And they took everything from terrorism, refugee crises, climate change, and they explained how this understanding of the mind would solve it. And these are 12-year-olds basically. And this was, he didn't reach out to us. He had no he didn't say, I need help. He just watched it and then said, I want to do this with my students, and did it. And I think that's awesome.
That's brilliant.
Maybe you watch it. Maybe you'll go, Lorianne, you'll run a One Solution event in your company or something. I don't know.
Right. Right. One of the themes that arises for me out of this conversation is that there's something about this understanding that helps us notice the obvious. Like, there's a way in which sometimes I go about life and I look for the way. And what's obvious is the what. This is a gross generalization, but it's like what may be obvious is what I want, what I care about, what appeals to me, what moves me. And if I start there, a way opens or doesn't.
Yeah.
But I can start with what I do know and what I do see. And so often we get caught up in thingifying the right way to do something. Mm-hmm. And there actually isn't such a thing.
And I couldn't agree more with you. Like, if you point your mind in a direction and you don't worry about the how, that, in my experience, gets shown to you. Mm-hmm. Like, that was what happened with us after that conversation on the couch. It was like, okay, we want to do this. How are we going to do it? I have no idea.
Cool. Many years ago, like almost 50 years ago. I walked out of my apartment one morning in Seattle. It was the first year I lived in Seattle. And all I knew is I wanted to go to the ocean. I moved to Seattle because I heard there was mountains and ocean, and I got here and I discovered, well, there's Puget Sound, but I want some ocean. So I walked out of my apartment with the intention to go to the ocean. I didn't have a car. I had a little bit of money. And I started by walking down the street to the kitchen of a tavern that I used to frequent, where people would have, that I knew would have coffee in the morning. And I walked in and said, "Hi, I'm going to the ocean today." And I'm like 19 or 18 years old. And they looked at me and said, "Really? So are we." And I got a ride to the ocean, complete with sleeping bags and food and everything I needed. And that comes to mind from time to time. I thought, what if it's really always that easy? Or what else am I missing? I would hesitate to propose that anything's always that easy, because that makes my desire to go to the ocean, the boss of the universe. And I don't see it that way. But wow, what if I put more energy into walking out the door toward what I want and less out of worrying what I ought to want and how it will turn out?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've got about 4 minutes, folks. One thought changes everything. It's available on the Kindle as well as in paperback. It really has become one of my favorite go-to books for introducing the principles to people, Mara, because there's a way in which you share your personal stories, both of your own experience and the experiences you've had with your clients, that I think opens a possibility for a shift in consciousness, for a shift in feeling. You communicate, in my view, very clearly, but you don't get caught up in the technicalities of what you're pointing to. It's charming, it's accessible, and it just makes a whole lot of sense. So I strongly recommend it to everybody. And I'm just curious, what was it like for you to write a book? Was that a trip?
Well, it is. It's very encouraging, and it makes me blush hearing you say what you say, because in my own head, I had such a different experience of writing that book. I didn't think I was clear or good enough, like I'd never written a book before. I didn't particularly enjoy the experience of writing the book. It was hard for me because I think now, looking back, had so much criticism of myself. Like I would start writing and then I never got to that space where I could just sit down and write.
Mm-hmm.
I would have moments, like every now and then, like I'd get chunks of it, but I was so bad at wanting to edit myself while I was doing it. So it's so funny because I can only compare this to friends that have had babies, and then they say, and then you want another one and you can't believe you want another one given what you just went through. It's like, I actually really want to write another book. I can't believe I'm saying that, given how not comfortable writing that first one was for me.
Yeah.
But it's because I think now I can see so clearly that I just needed to let go. And a big part of it too was, I think I started writing the book more as a diary. I think it was really something for myself, particularly the opening chapters about being held up at gunpoint in Argentina, and then growing up with my father and feeling the way I felt about him. Those were more like diary entries for me. The thought of sharing them with the world, sharing them with my family, really freaked me out. So I think there was a lot of me that was dragging my feet and thinking, I need to edit more. I need to this. And the truth is, I was just fucking scared of putting it out in the public,
Sure. Sure.
But the part that's been just amazing is the response I've gotten from people and how much it's helped them. And that's everywhere from cousins that I haven't heard from in a while have texted me and said, this has helped me so much, and friends and my family, my siblings both had a really strong response to it, having grown up in the same household, but hearing my version of it. And it's been a very beautiful thing with people I know personally, but then also hearing from people all around the world. Like a woman gave it to a client in Syria, and a woman who's blind has been reading it. It takes her like 3 hours to read a couple of pages, but she says she feels like she can see better now. I mean, just like the crazy, amazing, good feeling that comes back when you finally just, to my point to Lorianne earlier, get over yourself and just say how you really feel. It's like, that was kind of the book for me, is I just finally let go and said it, and the world has responded very kindly to it. Now, there's been a couple scathing reviews on Amazon, which has been hysterical and fun to read, but other than that, it's been mostly positive. So,
oh yay! I can't wait to go look at those and see if I
you
can't get
should.
all stirred up.
Very entertaining. Very entertaining.
Mara, thank you so much. I'm really excited for you and Eric in your upcoming wedding. To me, it just puts Princess Di and Prince Charles, you know, like nothing.
I'll be sure to have the big puffy sleeves like she
There
has.
you go. Yeah, no pressure. You just have to live up to that. Anyway, thanks,
Well, thanks for having me,
million.
Molly, and thank
You're
you to all
welcome.
of you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. The replay will probably be up within the hour. Please share it widely. Take care, all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Molly.
Bye.